welcome to the fascinating world of gut health. My name is Chloe, and I've been working with Michelle for a little while now, since last summer. But I'm definitely excited. It's been my pleasure to support the marketing effort for this webinar with Dr. Mona and Michelle DeWolf. And I want to open it up now as we get, before we get rolling into the conversation of stress and anxiety. If you're taking notes, feel free to write down what's brought you here today, and whether it's a health symptom, a current feeling that you're stuck in your health journey, or just general curiosity about gut health before we start, and what you really want to learn today that you can start feeling better tomorrow doing. So just give a little second for everyone to do that. You're going to learn so much tonight. It's going to be very fun. I love these two women.
And we couldn't have done it without Chloe.
Well, thank you. All right, well, while you guys are typing those away, I'm going to kick it off and hand it over to Michelle. And for those of you who might be unfamiliar with Michelle, she's such a lovely person, obviously, and just as enthusiastic as she is during these webinars. She's the exact same way every day because she's just so passionate about what she does. So thank you, Michelle, and I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Chloe. We could not have done this without you. It is my pleasure to have you on board supporting this effort. This is a little bit more about me. This whole wild ride started with the creation of a cooking school in my home. And I had some pre-professional culinary training at the Cambridge School of Culinary Arts. And my whole gig for having this cooking school was to teach kids and families to really eat more vegetables. And so it wasn't about making smiley face, English muffin pizzas. It was real legit. We made beautiful purple cabbage salads and all sorts of interesting things. And that led me to looking into developing my desire for more information around nutrition. My culinary clients started asking me, should I eat gluten, and why do I have stomach aches, and I, whole grains don't work for me, and what's the deal with broccoli, and should I be eating, kale, and asking me all these questions. And so to answer those questions, I worked on my certification as a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. That gives me a deep and broad education around a whole host of subjects that attend to our health and well-being, both on our plate from a nutrition standpoint and off our plate as well. And I've been digging in as well to my hormone health certification and gut health certification. To find out more. I think in a parallel life, I would go to school forever, and I would be a registered dietitian, and I would have gone to medical school, and I just love the information. So to that end, my focus in the work I do now is about disease prevention. And so it is all about ways that we can do that. And the gut health that Dr. Mona and I will talk about today is intimately involved in disease prevention. And I am proud to say that my clients and I have a 80% success rate of my clients reaching or exceeding the goals they set for themselves with me as their coach. I'm proud of the work that I've done. I am really happy to be here and to present this guidance and this education. So you'll find out more about me as we go, and we'll be here for questions at the end. And I am proud and honored to introduce you to, for those of you who don't know her, Dr. Mona, who I am really proud to be here with her. We have a ball working together, and we are both very passionate about what we do. So I will let Dr. Mona tell you about herself.
Hi, everybody. I see a lot of names I recognize. I'm so excited. Thank you for all the support from the folks I know and my team at Symphony as well. I see some names in there. So I am a naturopathic physician in the state of Washington, which, unlike some places in the country, means I'm a primary care physician, but I happen to get to use a really big toolbox of herbal medicine, nutrition, supplements, along with pharmaceuticals and other things when they're appropriate. So I really get to take the best of all the different medical worlds and mix them together and meet patients where they're at. And I primarily, 20 years into practice, really just focus on hormones and gastrointestinal health at this point, because just like this talk, they are intimately connected, and you really can't fix one thing without the other, because, as we're going to learn tonight, they are if you're stressed out, your gut isn't working, and then your hormones aren't working. And if your gut isn't working, then your hormones are not working because you're not cleaning out estrogen. So there's all this back and forth. So it's really exciting to work together with this. Me and Michelle actually met through my work at Symphony Natural Health, because she's a user of some of our products with her clients. And that's how we connected. I was answering questions for her, and then we just hit it off and made this great connection. And so now this is our second webinar we've done together, and we've worked together with other clients and things as well. So it's really exciting to be here. And then, because 2 jobs is not enough, I'm also the director of clinical services at Bastyr University, where I do mostly admin. I'm not seeing patients there, but I get to help direct some of the services we offer at Bastyr, and then how we integrate and help improve student learning and efficiencies in how we deliver care. And then that's only my professional life. I also am at home. I love cooking on the weekends with the family to prep meals for the week. So we are healthy eaters too. And I am also the doctor mom. My poor kids, unless they're bleeding, they're not going to the doctor because they have me. And I just joined a football team just for something fun and get out all the stress of work and life. So that's me in a nutshell.
How much do you love Dr. Mona, who's playing football? What did you call it? It's flackle.
Flackle.
Not
it's
flag
technically
football.
flag, but it turns into tackle apparently. It's my first year, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, don't hurt yourself. We need you.
Okay.
All right, so this seminar is for you, men and women. We're hormonal creatures. Women don't have a corner on the market of hormones. Men have hormones, and it affects you as well. This is for you if you are feeling new symptoms and you know in your gut, every pun intended, that there is an answer for you that you have not already tried. This seminar is for you if you're listening to your body and something has changed, right? You're not sure what, but you know in your gut there's something that you can be doing differently. And this is for you if you have hormones. So we've just established men have hormones and they get out of balance. And so with stress, hormones, gut health, this is all what we're going to talk about. And that's what I hope you are here for. So this, not to freak you out, but this is a non-comprehensive list of symptoms that could be signs of poor gut health. Certainly constipation, joint pain, things like that can be for other reasons, but this is a partial list of symptoms if you have poor gut health. If you're feeling bloaty, I like to say, after eating, or you might feel some actual pain and discomfort after eating something and you know it doesn't agree with you, or you may feel general digestive distress that varies from urgent to irritating, and you don't know why. You may feel hungry all the time. I hear that a lot, either hungry all the time or really not hungry. That is your body telling you something. But you see some people, even though they're not hungry or they feel they're not eating enough, they just look at food and they gain some weight. There's some imbalances happening in your body. And while stomach aches and bloating and lack of hunger cues or mismatched hunger cues, my favorite, constipation or diarrhea might be common, they don't have to be normal, and they don't have to be just muscled through, so to speak. So it might be tempting to do nothing and hope that things are going to get better. But a client said to me yesterday, things are not going to get better on their own from here on out unless I take an active role in my health. I thought that was brilliant. And I threw that right back at her in our call together. So this is a list of symptoms I want you to consider. And how do you know when it's working? What does it look like when it's working? Well, that's why Dr. Mona and I are here. That's why we want to give you this education, because we see the other side every day in the work that we do. We get to the root causes. We work to identify the triggers. We educate, support, guide, recommend, and prescribe, in Dr. Mona's case, so that you can get to the bottom of it once and for all. Dr. Mona is going to give us medical and often scientific reasons and explanations for what is happening. And I, as a health coach, get to work with you directly or with your doctor's orders to define a strategy to give you the step-by-step how to move forward for truly sustainable habits that work once and for all. We both are very aware that it's overwhelming. And we understand this pain and frustration, but we've done this work. I've been doing this work for a long time. Dr. Mona's been doing this work for a long time, and we can get to the bottom of it. So our promise for you today is that you're going to know why it is vitally important to care for your gut. we're going to cover stress and how that affects your gut. We're going to then dive into your digestion with some key illustrations, and then this fun activity. I don't think that's quite right. That Dr. Mona is going to talk about.
Imagination game.
Yeah, there you go. Blew us away. You're going to love it. And then we're going to cover hormones that affect all humans, as I mentioned. Quick disclaimer, right? This talk is for informational purposes and are not a substitute for your own doctor's professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare professional with any questions regarding your medical condition or undertaking a diet, dietary supplements, exercise, or any other health program or suggestion we make for you today. We are both well qualified, but you have to check and with your doctor. So we're going to start with stress. And the areas that, let me just think about this for a second. We are going to touch on different areas today. And we're going to start with stress. Sorry, lost my train of thought there for a second. And these are the areas that we're going to touch on. And I know in my heart of hearts that I believe in that feeling in your gut. I wholeheartedly believe in that gut instinct. And I know that there is, both through my own education and my own anecdotal evidence and clients, that there is an intimate connection and communication absolutely happening between your gut and your brain. So I want to, that is related to your poor gut health or good gut health. So knowing that, I wanted to reach out. I wanted to ask Dr. Mona what her thoughts are on the idea behind gut feeling or gut instinct and what you think about that.
I think, you've hit the nail on the head as far as like there's a reason we use that as a terminology and a colloquialism, because more we learn about the gut and the microbiome and the gut bugs and everything else, there's a very clear relationship between the mind-gut connection and how we feel, how we associate and have a relationship with food. And that's not just in our heads. Like there's actually hormonal changes that are happening in a communication between the brain and the gut, creating those feelings of satiation and being full or not full. All of those things play a role. And we had a gut feeling about that as human beings long before we had the science to back it up. So sure. Yeah, so that mind-gut connection, very powerful. We're going to dive into some of those factors tonight.
We are, and the thing that I love and the thing that compels me to continue to dig into this learning is that gut instinct and that gut feeling is related to our nervous system. And that because, and we'll talk about this a lot today, the vagus nerve that runs from our brain directly through our digestive system is communicating with that microbiome. It's communicating with our gut. And so when you get that gut instinct, there's a reason why you get a stomach ache. You don't feel so good when you're stressed out. You're having those chemical messengers give you that gut feeling, give you that gut instinct. And it's one of the ways that we survive. So I find it fascinating. And then hormones, that affects, these all have a domino effect with each other. And hormones, one thing I love about this, and again, Dr. Mona and I can only touch on these. So these are going to be very high level at this point, and we'll dig into a couple of areas in this talk. Because each of these topics could go on for days. But hormones, one thing I want to plant a seed for you to consider is that 90% of your serotonin, which is your happy hormone, resides in your gut. And so I want you to consider that we have to feed our gut well in order to consistently and make great serotonin on a regular basis, which keeps us happy. So there's a reason why you want to feed your gut well to keep us happy. The gut is an endocrine organ, and because they have the chemical messengers to regulate your body processes. And it includes digestion among many, many, many others. The endocrine cells secrete hormones, and some of those hormones like insulin and glucagon, which regulate our blood sugar, ghrelin and leptin, which regulate our appetite, are intimately involved in this process. So there's a reason why we need to feed our gut, and there's a reason why we need to think about it beyond just these things existing. What are your thoughts, Dr. Mona?
I don't know that I have a whole lot to add on that particular place until we get into some of the details, but like, and the one thing that we didn't put on here is we've got the serotonin aspect and that happy hormone, which is why that's so intimately connected in like IBS, for example, irritable bowel syndrome, strong connection. If you're stressed out, you're more likely to have a flare. Right. If you're relaxed, and I mean, there's lots of other things, food intolerances and many other aspects, but there's a huge connection between serotonin, melatonin, which we'll touch on really briefly tonight. All of those things affect gut motility, the bacteria that are living in there. And then those are all feeding back to the brain, telling it to be stressed out and how much pain should I feel. All of those hormone signaling products are going round and around.
Right, right. And just to suffice to say, we're trying to plant some seeds to get you invested. We want you to really think about why you should de-stress and why you should think about your gut. And to talk about anxiety and the domino effect, which Dr. Mona just touched on, the anxiety and the stress that puts us in this mild fight or flight syndrome that releases cortisol and adrenaline, which then is busy linking to release glucose from our liver to get us out of the danger that it thinks we're in. So then we have this constant dysregulation that happens when we are under anxiety. And even something as simple as someone cutting you off in traffic. You know, I know you don't cuss and swear at them, but you're still feeling stressed, whether you cuss and swear at them or not. But that cutting you off in traffic, you know, the kids coming to you when you're on a Zoom call and you can't talk to them, whatever that might be that's happening, that keeps us in that mild fight or flight. And it has that domino effect of releasing those hormones and that glucose to get us out of danger, because our body doesn't have multiple ways to react. The tiger is either shooting out of the bushes to kill us and we're in that fight or flight, or, you know, the person cut us off in traffic and we're in that fight or flight. So our body does that. And the one, there are lots of ways to de-stress. You can take your yoga, you can do those kinds of things. But one way that I work with my clients on all of the time, every day, that absolutely 100% will get you tapped into your parasympathetic nervous system to rest, aptly called the rest and digest system, is through deep belly breathing. And the reason for that is because the diaphragm is exercising in that deep belly breathing. When your belly gets big and then it comes back in, your diaphragm is moving and touching your vagus nerve, which is then telling you that you are okay, ultimately. And so, because you can't, when the tiger's shooting out of the bushes to eat you, you can't breathe in a slow and methodical way. So that is the way you communicate to your body, even when you're totally stressed, to calm down. The Navy SEALs use it. It is well documented that this is the way we're going to tap into it. And Dr. Mona has a way that she likes to do it that I'm going to have her introduce so that we can take a second and all take a deep breath.
Great. So one of the other things is also thinking about this when you're eating. So we haven't gotten into all of this, but digestion requires us to be in this relaxed space. So sitting up straight, and you can go ahead and do this now. If your feet aren't on the ground, sit up straight, put your feet on the ground so you're grounded with the earth, even if you're on the 15th floor. And then it's about, you know, taking that into our food and that intention into how we eat and how we relate to our food, slowing everything down so we are actually improving our digestion and this stress response. I try to get patients to do 3 minutes a day, even 3 minutes a day, 2 minutes a day, anything, any time spent in a centered, present, mindful space is going to help you train your vagus nerve, train your autonomic nervous system to settle down and be more settled. And if you practice it, just like if you go to the gym every day, if you practice deep breathing or meditation or whatever resonates for you, even for a few minutes a day, when you're in that stressful event, you have practiced it and you can drop yourself into it much, much quicker. So with that, I'm going to do something really simple. It's called 4-7-8 breathing. Some people have probably seen this or heard of this before. But using, you know, breathing into your belly, filling up that belly, you're going to breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold it for a count of 7, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and out through your mouth for 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It can be really uncomfortable to do that at first, to do inspiration and double the length of time for the expiration. But in doing that, you're resetting that vagus nerve, you're calming down the nervous system. So let's go one more time. In through your nose for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Out through the mouth. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A couple of rounds of that when you wake up in the middle of the night, when you're stressed out in a meeting, it can have a wonderful effect of just settling everything down. So with that, we'll jump into the sciencey slide that's next. So now that you're calm and you took a deep breath, and you're right, I saw a comment. Yes, it's similar to box breathing. There's lots of different breathing techniques, but in the end, use the one that works for you, because they're all going to help get you there. So not to completely overwhelm you, but this is basically what's happening in your body. I found this, the citation is here. If you like to go read papers, it's actually a really nice summary article. But basically our bodies are doing all of these different things at the same time. Can you see my mouse? Or do I have to take control of something? Okay. That's okay. So we have our brain up here, and it's kind of the director of everything.
Yeah,
and we have a couple.
Mouse.
You can?
No.
Okay. So I'll talk through it. So you've got your brain, this big pink blob up here at the top, and you've got your HPA axis, which is your hypothalamus pituitary axis. And that's talking to your adrenal glands and your ovaries and all these different organs in your body that make hormones, but it's also speaking to your gut. And it is directing traffic with which hormones get made and how serotonin is made and metabolized, and how gut bacteria are interacting with the body. And then you've got the vagus nerve that's turning around and sending signals back to the brain with what's going on. Am I digesting? Is the gut cramped up or not? Is it relaxed? All of those pieces. And then on the other side, this is the autonomic nervous system. This is your relax, rest, and digest side of the nervous system. And it's sending signals down to the gut to create neuroactive substances and gut hormones and all these different things, which are then also feeding back to the brain to give it signaling. So all of this is happening at the same time. In the end, it is about calming down the entire system so that we can digest properly and we're feeding the right signals to the brain. So this comes into play with cramping, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, all those different pieces. So for example, here with stress. So let's say we had a really terrible day at work, or we have a really stressful job for months at a time. It causes changes in 5-HTP, which is kind of the precursor to serotonin, and catecholamines, which are like adrenaline as an example, and cytokines, which are inflammatory little guys that mess with how things are working, and leaky gut and causing inflammation along the gut barrier. And all of those are then going to affect that gut permeability, what kinds of microbes are in the gut, and that's all starts to cascade into bigger digestive problems. We also then have issues with the autonomic nervous system. If your vagus nerve and you're not being able to relax and digest your food properly, now we've got changes in motility, which lead to constipation and diarrhea. You've got immune function changes. So what kind of gut bugs? They're intimately linked with your immune system, and our gut is a lot of our immune system. It protects us and it fights things for us before they ever get into the bloodstream to affect the system on a larger level. And then permeability. You've probably all heard of food intolerances or food allergies. This is where this permeability concept comes into play. The gut should be, I always tell patients, it should kind of be like a wall. You've got the inside world and the outside world. And once it gets leaky, instead of a wall or a fence, it becomes a chain link fence. And now it's leaky, and you've got things that can get through the wall, and the immune system and the bloodstream and those white blood cells are seeing things that they don't typically see. And we start going down that cascade of the joint pain and eczema and some of those other conditions that you don't at first associate with the gut, but they're often linked to gut health overall. So in short, wrapping this slide up, is stress is going to change how our HPA axis is working and how our autonomic nervous system, central nervous system is responding to those things. And that literally changes the function and the microbial composition of the gut itself.
Absolutely. It puts us into a position of making disease a lot more welcome in our body because of those imbalances, and that the central nervous system is so intimately involved in this. There's great research behind things like multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's and other central nervous system diseases that are brought on by this very specific imbalance that Dr. Mona talked about. So we're just trying to plant some seeds to get you invested again, right? Because we see this all the time. And so we're going to talk, there's more, right? So we're going to talk about a few different areas, touching on digestion, which we're going to get into in a unit in a second. But I wanted to plant the seed that, where do you think digestion begins? Most people imagine it happens in their stomach because that's where digestion is happening, but it actually starts in your mouth when we chew our food. And so many of us are eating in our cars, we're eating on the run, we're wolfing it down. Do you have any idea how many times you chew your food before you swallow it? When I ask people that and they do a little experiment, they're like 5, 4. We need you to chew things like 20 to 30 times. I want it to be, this is gross, little warning, I want this to be like a chunky applesauce, a kind of a homemade applesauce type of consistency, because there are no teeth beyond your mouth. And you are sending a lot of work down into your system. In addition, the enzymes that are released by the action of chewing are part of the enzymes that are communicating with your brain to prepare your stomach for what's coming and prepare your digestive system for what's coming, so that they can send all the proper pieces and all the proper little soldiers, right, out into your system to take care of what's coming. So how fast do you clean your plate? I know so many of us spend 30 minutes making dinner and then 15 minutes eating it, and then everybody's gone from the table and you think, what just happened? You haven't even had time, your body hasn't even had time to tell you that it's full. It hasn't had time to give you the full complement of enzymes. When we're stressed out on top of it, our system is slowed down, so we're not digesting as quickly as we are, which breeds bacteria. There's a lot of different things going on. We're going to talk about it a little bit more, but did you have anything else to add on digestion, Dr. Mona? No.
Thank you.
And then immunity, she touched on that as well, right? So 70 to 80% of your immune cells live in your gut. Think about that for a second. That's the thing that's going to keep you COVID free. That's the thing that's going to battle cancers and diseases. There's no guarantee, but you certainly want to make sure that it is robust and hardy down there. It's your protection from the outside world. Your gut and that whole system is open to the outside world and is dealing with and processing all of those things. And when we don't chew our food, we're sending these larger molecules down into our system that it can't break down as well as it should, and it needs to make space, and it starts getting through, and things that aren't supposed to get through our gut lining are getting into our system and causing inflammation, which then builds upon itself. Did I cover all of that? I think
I'll just add one quick thing to the immunity piece. When we have all the right bugs, or mostly the right bugs, they are adding to this whole immunity piece. We've got trillions of those bugs down there helping our own innate immune system do its job. So the more that microbiome is off, the more dysbiosis, that's the term we use on how dys or not biotic, symbiotic it's happening, that is going to impact your immune system as well. So you've got just the straight up capacity of the gut wall to help protect you. And then we have beneficial or not so beneficial bugs down there as well that are helping us.
Absolutely. And it is 100% affected by the foods that we eat. How else do they get in there? Right? So they are 100% affected by the choices that we make. And then sleep, we talked about melatonin for a moment, and I don't think we're getting entirely into melatonin today, but it is shown that you have greater microbiome diversity when you're getting great sleep, and that the serotonin in our gut is affected by our sleep, which goes hand in hand. So and that's just, tip of the iceberg. And I wanted to ask you, Dr. Mona, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
And that's where I had to put that in there, because it's like, did the poor sleep start causing the stress and poor gut health, or did the stress and the poor gut health make the sleep worse? Can be a really nasty hamster wheel. So oftentimes it's like, pick something to focus on, right? So if all the diet changes feel like too much right now, just focus on really good quality sleep. And then we start improving our stress response, and then we can get to the gut stuff. So all of this can get very overwhelming very quickly. Don't let it. Take that deep breath again, do a box breath, do a 4-7-8 breathing, and just say, you know what, I'm going to work on improving this one thing this week or this month. And then we're going to just keep on going down the chain.
Right. And that's the work that we get to do. That's fun to watch, because we help you look at what your priorities are and what you're going to do. What's your next best step that you are willing, interested, and able to do right now. And then we will get into, so we're going to get more into digestion. As I said, the gut is that door to the outside world. And so, and while the microbiome and the study of the gut is certainly an emerging field, and I almost want to say a little bit buzzy right now, but for great reasons, as opposed to other things that get buzzy in the health and wellness world for no good reason. Key functions are related to your metabolism and ongoing immune system education, which is important as your immune system develops and builds for itself and can protect itself. And it does that regulation through all those chemical messengers that we've been talking about. And they protect us against the pathogen invasion and those imbalances. So ultimately, you remember this, it makes disease less welcome in our bodies. That's the reason that we do it. So I know that Dr. Mona and I have talked for quite some time about the microbiome and bacteria and health in general. And so we're going to cover a few points today, and then a really cool demonstration to really get you thinking, covering the microbiome, the demonstration, and then some results after that. So take it away.
Okay. So another slide that, I mean, each one of these little boxes could be a CE and like a day-long seminar. So it's wordy. I won't read every single thing on here, but let's just suffice it to say that there are trillions of microbes in our gut and on our skin, and most of our immunity comes from their support. They've evolved with us over millions of years. So we provide the room and board. We provide the place to stay and the food for them to eat, but then they are providing, in turn, countless metabolic reactions that we can't do in our own cells. So this is a very symbiotic relationship. They're helping us make the right kinds of, or ferment carbohydrates into different kinds of chemical compounds that help us do things like short chain fatty acids that help repair the colon cells. So butyrate, for example. Or help support healthy cholesterol formation. And the cholesterol formation then helps inform hormone creation, because cholesterol is the backbone molecule for estrogen and progesterone and testosterone and a number of other things in the body. Not all cholesterol is bad. We want the right cholesterol. And then they also help us make things for energy production and balance of energy, like propionate, and helping us balance out those sugars and fats. So this is a really complex relationship that contributes to our health and can contribute to a number of different diseases when it's disrupted. So we're going to talk about this, but like PCOS and endometriosis, very estrogen dominant kinds of conditions, not a disease necessarily, but a condition that causes havoc for a lot of different women. There's a lot of now more and more gut connections to what's happening with how you're not clearing out estrogen as well as the next person. And then of course, like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, we're seeing a lot of gut connections there as well.
Do you want me to say? So I'm gonna say this because okay. So Dr. Mona did this for Chloe and I, and we were just blown away. So the following slide in this description, which if we were doing it in person, and we talked about trying to figure out how to do it on a video, but it would have been not so great. So there are going to be some photos you see, and we want you to consider for yourself which photo is setting you up for food intolerances, inflammation, and further disruption, given everything we've talked about, of the microbiome, and which picture is supporting a healthy gut. So when you see it, you're going to be like, duh. You know, it's going to be exactly what you think, but just wait till you understand why when Dr. Mona talks about this next step.
So this is a demonstration I love doing. Well, I'm going to record it someday and put it on YouTube or something, but I haven't done that. So if you've got these two pantyhose over here, and you imagine cutting off the toes of them, so they're open tubes, right? And in one of them, I'm going to place one of these meals, and the other one, I'm going to place the other meal. The pantyhose or the nylon is a great example of that, of the semi-permeable membrane of the gut, right? We want to let stuff through and we want to interact with the outside world with what's coming in, right? But if I were to, and you're going to use your imagination on this, if I was standing here with one of these nylons and I was squishing bits of the hamburger and the cheese and the bun and the French fries down there, and I'm trying to then do peristalsis or move that food through the tube, which is what your gut is doing, what is that going to look like? Just sit and imagine that. It's a gloopy, stuck together mess trying to get through that gut. Versus if I take the other plate here with your fruits and your vegetables, little bits of chicken without tons of fatty sauce on it, and that goes through this other nylon, it's basically going to kind of fall on through. Now, this is simplistic, of course, but it's going to fall on through. That fiber is going to clean the gut wall. That fiber is going to pass through without leaving gloop and inflammation and all these other things along the way. So in a nutshell, tonight's talk, this is one of the visuals that I like to leave patients with, is think about what you are putting in that tube and the impact that has, not just on the gut wall and how gloopy it might be, scientific word, by the way, gloopy, but also the fact that those things are sitting around, you're not digesting them very well, they're causing some inflammation, now they're messing with your microbiome, they're messing with the hormones, they're doing all the stuff that we were already talking about. So think about which gut you want to have.
Love it. I love that. It stuck with me. It really has stuck with me. I love it. And then we're going to talk about some results that you may get from that. If you want to take this one, Dr. Mona.
Yeah. So it's not just about gut health and the good bugs. I know that's what we've kind of been talking about, but these gut bugs and your overall gut health also help inform your brain and inform your body about hunger and satiety. So if they inform leptin and ghrelin, and with serotonin and anxiety and stress, if those things are thrown off, then you actually end up with more food cravings. It's called comfort food for a reason, right? We go to it because it gives us this little hit of happiness, and that's gut hormones, and that's hormones then that are feeding back to our brain. And so we're messing with our satiety, our hunger signaling, and then that can also then play into even eating disorders on the larger scale. So there's all these biochemical reactions that are happening in between with what we are putting in and feeding those gut microbes and gut bugs. Then we also have this other piece of non-digestible carbohydrates or resistant starches. It's becoming a little bit of a buzzword out there too. They've existed for a long time, but they actually have been shown to improve metabolic disorders. They reduce caloric intake and weight. And these are your cooked and cooled rice and potatoes, green bananas, beans. We're not going to talk about SIBO. And yes, there's definitely some conditions where we have to be careful with some of these things or fix that problem so we can eat these again. But these foods actually help feed all those good gut bugs and help with those hunger and satiety markers in the brain. And just a quick stat, most Americans are maybe getting 15 grams a day, and we should be getting 25 or 30. So right. It is about more veggies on the plate.
It's the standard American diet, does not set us up for success. It doesn't give us that fiber. The processed foods don't have the fiber in it. It's found not only, you think about carbohydrates and breads, right? White bread doesn't necessarily have that fiber in it that you need. It's the whole grain breads and it's vegetables and fruit, and eating them as close to their natural source as possible. And fiber is the biggest deficiency in the Western world. And so it is important that we get that. And to that end, we don't want to leave you with all the doom and gloom, but it's really important to us that we plant these seeds, because I find better compliance and better progress when people really know the why behind why they're doing it. I can tell you to eat veggies, like we all know that, but why should I care? And all the things we talk about are why you should care for your own body. And we both want to make disease unwelcome in all of your bodies all of the time as best as we can. So I'm going to start with a little bit of doom and gloom, I guess. So these are the gut unfriendlies, and I'm not going to read this. This is also a wordy slide, but I want you to think about these different areas and wonder to yourself, which area do I need to work on? So NSAIDs, for example, so that's your ibuprofen, and there has been shown to have damage on the mucosal wall. It, of course, taxes your liver because it has to process all that, and it slows down digestion and can increase bacterial overgrowth is some of the research behind that. So if ibuprofen is something that you take without thinking much about it, think about it. Think about it a little bit. There are natural remedies for pain relief. There are other things you can do. You might have a headache and need a glass of water. You might need to stretch. There's lots of reasons why you might be having the need. And I have to say that I was kind of an ibuprofen. I had it as a habit. I just thought, oh, I took a class, I took a yoga class, I got sore, I'm going to take some ibuprofen. I don't need to do that. I can be a little sore. I can drink more water. I can stretch it out and I'm fine the next day and avoid it a little bit. So added sugars, one thing is to keep your added sugars low to 24 grams a day is your recommendation these days. But how do you know, right? Because you're not spending your day reading and writing and every single thing down. So what I'm going to tell you is that if you are eating as close to the natural source as possible, think apple versus apple juice, think, a whole grain versus that, like a cup of the oatmeal that has the maple and cinnamon sugar in it, right? Think oatmeal rather than the processed one. If you're eating in a way that is close to your natural source as possible, you can avoid those things. Sugar isn't evil. You can have a donut, you can have a piece of pie, you can have those things, but this is not your grandmother's sugar anymore. Back in the day, your grandmother had an apple pie on Sunday night, but it wasn't in absolutely everything else all day long. It wasn't in the breads or the ketchup or the mayonnaise or all of the other things. So I want you to think about that. And think about where in here you'd like to keep an eye. I'm trying to think of the time and how much. So these are the gut friendlies. These are the things on your plate. Gut friendly is also stress reduction and deep breathing, and there's lots of things off your plate, but these are the gut friendlies on your plate. I want you to consider really eating the rainbow. You may have heard it before, but this is absolutely how you know, without weighing and measuring and tracking and that kind of thing, that you are getting a variety of antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, and the fiber that you need when you are eating that rainbow of foods. In addition, the whole foods, where we just talked about that, right? So the whole real foods as nature intended them. And Dr. Mona touched on this earlier, it's the body's scrubbers. It's the way it grabs things and gets them out of there. If you're going to eat packaged foods, I would love for them to have less than about 5 ingredients. And I would love for you to be able to identify those and pronounce them and know where they come from. Healthy fats. Healthy fats don't make you fat. They are an anti-inflammatory because every cell in your body consistently needs them to do their job. It balances, when you have healthy fats, it balances your omega fatty acids and gives you more omega-3s, because in the standard American diet, whose acronym is SAD, you get way too many omega-6s, and we have an imbalance that research is saying is just not serving us well. I want you to consider quality proteins. If you're plant-based or you're animal-based or both, I want you to consider where those things came from. Are they grass-fed happy cows? Because when you're eating meat from a happy cow doing its happy cow business, it has a very different nutritional profile than feedlot cattle. You can think of feedlot cattle as the equivalent of us sitting on our couch watching TV, eating donuts and Doritos all day long. What's the makeup of our body? What's the makeup of theirs? So that's the reason why we would want to make that choice, because of the nutritional profile. And then your plant-based proteins, I want those to grow in a quality soil. That's why we would choose organic, non-genetically modified, because it will reduce your antibiotic exposure from the organic meat. It will reduce your pesticide exposure and other chemicals. If the nutrition is not in the soil, it cannot be in the plant or the animal, and we cannot get it in our bodies. So with that said, I left pre and probiotics. I didn't forget them. I saw them there. But I left those for last because I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Let me get to my notes. So while they do keep you regular, I want you to primarily get your pre and probiotics from food. And I could give you that list. It's easy enough to Google that up and figure out what it's going to do. The prebiotics are going to, I have so many notes because I had so many things that I wanted to share with all of you. The probiotics are the ones that we've talked about already. They're naturally present in your system and they can get in balance and out of balance. And the prebiotics is one of the ways that we feed the probiotics. So they go hand in hand. And while supplements are good, and Dr. Mona and I could talk a lot about supplements for a lot of things. And when you hear a lot of the words of the metabolic processes and what's needed to have it happen, a lot of people will tell you that you need to supplement that to increase that availability, but it's not necessarily the case unless there's a documented deficiency. And the research for probiotics is all over the map at this point. And I know anecdotally it works really well for some people, but there is a way to pick a better probiotic. And I wanted Dr. Mona to talk about the license plate that you can look for when you're picking out your probiotics.
Yeah, so it is always really important. I mean, really, it's about nutrition. If you're eating all your fruits and veggies, unless you have a specific health condition, I'm not giving every patient a probiotic, right? Because there's a lot you can be doing with your diet and lifestyle. The more we learn about this stuff, the more targeted. It used to be 20 years ago, we had lactobacillus and bifido, every product, that's all we had. And now we know we need Akkermansia, which is hard to supplement, but you've got lactobacillus acidophilus, you've got lactobacillus gasseri, you've got lactobacillus reuteri. There's all these different species that do different things in the gut. And so it's getting very, very targeted with our supplementation there. But if you are looking at a probiotic, my one, like a quick take home, if there's beyond food, I call it the license plate because these are bacteria. And you're putting bacteria literally in your body on purpose, intentionally. And so you want to make sure they're pure, they're the right thing. They're not, you can trace them back to their mother culture, right? How are they grown? And so when you're looking at a label on a probiotic, if it doesn't have the little parentheses after the name with some letters and numbers, like a license plate, then that means that that company hasn't necessarily done their due diligence with tracking it back to the mother culture. And so that's my quick and easy screen of, is this a decent probiotic or not?
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And I learned that there are some brands I trust. I don't know. I had a question for you, Dr. Mona, but I did want to mention I trust Thorne and Pure Encapsulations. And I also saw that Designs for Health had the license plate we talked about. So I like that one. But my question is, in addition to the license plate, how do we know? Because I noticed like Seed is one that's bubbled up for some of my clients. And when I look at that, it's got the license plate and it has this pretty huge list of a variety of different probiotics, and they have it segmented out: cardiometabolic health, digestive health and hormone health, and then they have the strains underneath it. Would I want to take a probiotic that has 50 different things that is for all of these different? How do you make that decision?
I think that's the decision where you got to find someone who can help guide you, or what do you really need? Because I do get a little nervous at times. Sometimes those are great. If you're generally healthy and you take it for a month and then you're taking a break, that may work great to just kind of seed some good bugs in there if you're also eating healthy and feeding them all the food to keep them there. But there's also an element of, I'm typically treating people with individual and really doing it from like, we're going for women's, we need flora in the vaginal health area. So we really want to go look at women's flora, or we are like women's health flora for our particular systems, or someone has IBS or Crohn's or colitis, and I'm going for very specific bacteria that help shut down the inflammatory response. So I find, at least in my practice, looking at much more specific bacteria.
Right. And that's where we're getting to when I'm working with clients and we're getting to the root cause of the issue, then we can drill down into the specifics where appropriate. And the idea of throwing the book at it with probiotics, there's not a lot of research that says this absolutely works. And so you can anecdotally give it a try, but it can cause some digestive distress if you're throwing in all that bacteria that your body doesn't recognize. It can cause some digestive distress.
And even more if you're doing prebiotics, you're putting inulin, they're putting all sorts of, fructooligosaccharides and those food for the bacteria. If you already have some dysbiosis and then you go put a bunch of prebiotics in there, you could actually cause more bloating and more gas and more discomfort. So that's where I err on the side of food first.
Yes.
and fixing the gut so that we can do all of those things without causing more symptoms.
Same. And we add those things in a little bit at a time. People
Mhm.
get really fired up and they get their list of prebiotics and they start eating all these things and doing, and then they're beside themselves. I'm like, let's just settle down and do one thing at a time and take it from there. So then this in my talks, and then I know in the last talk with Dr. Mona, hydration always gets its very own slide because I want everybody to be hydrated. It does everything. It is a miracle. It is, I had a client in the very beginning and her very first homework was simply to drink water. And she came flying back in 2 weeks later and said, that's all she did. And I have never felt better. And I'm skipping my afternoon Starbucks and I feel great and I have energy. It just really turned it around for her. So it regulates body temperature. It keeps your joints lubricated. It can help prevent infection because it's flushing you out. It delivers nutrients to your cells. So it helps bubble all that up, keeps your organs functioning properly. And being well hydrated also improves your sleep quality, cognition, bowel movements, and your mood. And if that's not enough, it can plump up your skin and help you look younger. So if none of those other things do it for you, drink water so that you can look younger. And so it's important. All right. So hormones. All right. This is an area where Dr. Mona has so much to share for us. And I had taken it upon myself to learn as much as I possibly can in my hormone health certifications, in addition to my gut health certification, to get to the bottom of my own hormone journey. I wholeheartedly see and feel the connection between hormones and my gut and symptoms. And I've been sleuthing through it myself. I love the things that I've learned from Dr. Mona and from my certifications. It's been amazing. And so there's so much to consider. Dr. Mona is going to cover gut influence on hormones, and then a bit more, and then a little bit about a new frontier to introduce some new ideas to you.
So, sorry, all my slides are just full of stuff. Because again, like this could be a 3-hour talk if we really wanted to. It could be longer than that. But we've been talking about the hormones. And so I kind of think about this in a couple of different levels. First, we just have to stay hydrated, eat fiber, because we need to clean house, right? We need to not be constipated, and we just need good gut motility, right? So there's just good overall function of the gut. And then we get down into these increasingly detailed levels, all the way down to how the gut influences hormones, how they're made, how they're processed. So again, I'm going to go back to these microbes because this is a huge burgeoning field of study and research. We're learning more every day. I have to joke with people that as holistic healthcare providers, as a naturopath, there's other people on this call too, who've been doing this for a long time. We've been talking about this in our field forever, and we were the crazy ones. And now there's all this data. And of course, it's much better. It's much more detailed. We know so much more, but it always cracks me up that now it's real medicine because we have more research to it, but we've been talking about probiotics and gut health for so long in the naturopathic field. Anyway, so microbes, we mentioned this before, but they help produce peptides, and those influence satiety, insulin sensitivity, and then that leaky gut barrier health issue. And I know we're talking, everyone wants to think like, what about menopause, or what about my PCOS or my PMS? All of this stuff also then influences that. So that's why I keep kind of bringing it back to these gut bugs and how is the gut functioning, because all of that stuff trickles out. So we need a healthy gut barrier. Peptides help us do that. They directly impact leptin, which is that hunger messenger and informs whole body nutritional status. And it's leptin resistance as a hallmark of obesity. And what improves that? Prebiotics and a positive shift in the microbiome. So we're back to eating those fruits and vegetables, but this is why. And the beans, I'm not leaving the beans out. Gut microbes inform gut motility. So gut motility is that nice wave-like motion from the mouth to the other end of the tube to clear out the tube and keep things moving forward in the right direction. SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, is the disruption of that. When gut bugs have moved from the large intestine back up into the small intestine and motility is not going the right direction. And so in the case of SIBO, it's negatively impacting motility because those same gut bugs are producing a toxin that inhibits motility and encourages them to keep overgrowing in the small intestine. So it's getting rid of the overgrowth, and then we have to fix the motility. So that's how motility, they can negatively impact our gut motility. On the positive side, I've got just a couple of examples here with a couple of bacteria that actually increase serotonin in the gut and make GABA, which is another neurotransmitter hormone kind of thing that aids in motility, gastric emptying, and visceral pain. So all of these things also inform that. And I didn't include melatonin here as well. There's more melatonin in the gut than in the brain for sleep. And it's not acting by circadian rhythm there. It's acting to inform the immune system, the gut microbiome, motility, and then inflammation and antioxidant status in the gut. So these guts are playing into just overall, how are we moving things through the system? And then that's going to, in the larger scheme, that larger bubble, if you're not cleaning things out and you're not pooping every day, then you're not cleaning out excess estrogen, excess stress hormones, because our body processes all that stuff through the liver, dumps it into the colon to get rid of, literally capture it in a net of fiber and pull it out of the system. So if we're not doing this motility piece well, things are backing up into the system. Now we have inflammation. Now we've got more leaky gut. So you see how all of these like little teeny microscopic things, we start bubbling out to all these other larger pieces. And then they're doing this directly back and forth with communication with the nervous system. If you like sciencey stuff, there's a great summary article that is a pretty easy read on some of the details around this.
I love that. I love that about melatonin. That is fascinating. And there's more.
So when we're looking at all these pieces, we got there our estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. We talked about how the gut bugs are going to inform those. And if we're constipated, we're going to increase that. But there's also an element of their changing the function of the gut. So many women at least are familiar, like a lot of gals will get a little constipated before their period, their menses starts, and all of a sudden they have diarrhea. That is the impact of those changes and surges of estrogen and progesterone on gut motility. So we've got what's happening on the microscopic chemical messenger side, and then we've got kind of what's happening on the larger scale. And then, like we said, constipation, your body processes that estrogen, puts it in the from the liver, puts it in the gut to get rid of. It's sitting there for 3 days because you haven't had a bowel movement. It's getting resorbed back into the system. And now we've got even more estrogen dominance and more inflammatory stuff going on in PMS and all those other pieces. And then it's not just women. Estrogen also impacts sperm maturation and libido maintenance in men. So we don't want to exclude our guys here tonight. All of this is playing in everyone in different ways and different capacities. And then, of course, the microbiome impacts that estrogen regulation. So we have the overt action of estrogen and progesterone on, constipation and diarrhea. But the gut microbiome, besides the constipation piece, they make an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase, which actually helps process that estrogen. And whether or not that's over or underactive, it impacts then how much estrogen is in the system or how much we're clearing out of the system. And that can impact conditions like PCOS and endometriosis. And then the opposite in menopause, estrogen drops off. And now we actually change the microbiome because now estrogen's not informing the gut microbiome. And so we have a whole different set of issues. So all of them are playing off of each other. And then testosterone, we know, reduces pain in the digestive tract, and it also minimizes the negative impact of cortisol on the system and decreases inflammation. So all of these things are happening all of the time. So gut health is important to inform those. Just like we also then we need hormone balance to inform the gut. So they are intimately connected and working together.
It's amazing that the body, works together, and it's some remarkable machinery that we need to feed well. And the standard American diet and our American food system is not setting us up to do that easily and efficiently. And in addition to being able to feed the gut, you talk a lot about the liver and the huge role it plays in that. I mean, we could do a talk for an hour about the liver and the processes and all that's involved there that is also impacting all of this and digestion too. So I find that fascinating work. And then Dr. Mona wanted to introduce kind of a new frontier, this new area of study that I thought was fascinating, that we're going to just plant a little seed again to let you know.
So there's this whole other term that's come into the science frontier called the estrobolome, which is the estrogen's impact on the microbiome and the gut microbiota. So I mentioned this before, but we've got these gut bacteria that help actually metabolize estrogen for us, the beta glucuronidase, into its active form, back into its active form from the liver, so it can bind to those estrogen receptors. So in an unhealthy gut, that can lead to too much or too little estrogen. And I alluded to this before. We can then have impacts with how terrible our menopausal symptoms are, or how good they are, or what's going on with these other kind of estrogen dominant conditions like PCOS and endometriosis, and how well we're processing all of that out of the system. And because estrogen is largely responsible for that menstrual cycle, our body fat deposition, cardiovascular health, keeping hormones balanced, and the gut, working those two together, extremely important. So there's a couple of probiotics here specifically. These are the women's probiotics that you see. They're usually high in Lactobacillus gasseri and reuteri. Those are important players in this process, but they're not the only players in this process.
It'll be interesting to
Watch
see.
for more.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it heads. And this is such an emerging field, and gut health is such a big field and such a big buzzword right now. We wanted to throw it out there so that you've got some ideas to follow. And then, so what does that mean to you? So obviously, right, a healthy gut equals balanced motility, balanced microbes, and balanced hormones for women and men. There's a reduction in that bloaty feeling. There's a reduction in cramps for women, headaches, brain fog, anxiety, depression, menopausal symptoms, PMS, a reduction in disease, right? We've talked about that. Reduction in diabetes risk, cancer risk, cardiovascular disease. I put cancer risk twice because it's twice as important, and dementia risk as well. So it's important for every single process, because that's how we're feeding the machine, right? So if you had, you put gas into your car, if you put water into your car, that's not going to work. If you put, oil into your, like canola oil into your gas tank, that's not going to work, right? It needs to be fed the right amount at the right times in the right way so that it can run. It is as simple as that, and we need to feed our bodies in that way. And
to one of the points that Michelle has made, and don't get overwhelmed by all the details of tonight, water, more PMS, hormone imbalances, all that stuff fixed with water and eating more vegetables. Yep. And then, yes, we get into the supplements, we get into herbs. I use, maca, all sorts of different things. We can use melatonin, we can use all of those other pieces, but in the end, there's still a foundational layer. If you just start eating more vegetables and drinking more water tomorrow, that's going to help. Yep. And if vegetables make your gut symptoms worse, then that's a different conversation that clearly we have to do some adjustments with what's happening in that microbiome and digestively.
Right. That's exactly right. And that's where we start. I mean, I start keeping it simple. What are you eating? What are you doing? What's nourishing you on and off your plate? And where do you need to tuck in the edges? Because it's not about, wholesale change for most people. It does happen. And in the clients that I've worked with that have had cancer diagnosis, they may need a wholesale change because they're ready and it scared them. So they're ready to do it. A lot of us could use a wholesale change of what the choices that we're making both on and off our plate, but we're not ready, willing, or even interested in doing that. People come to me and they hold their hands and they say, don't make me give up my wine, or don't make me give up my coffee. We're just adding in water, we're adding in vegetables. We're going to make sure that we keep it simple and we take it one step at a time, because that super secret, right, of making progress is to just get started. You just get started. So we both want you to pick today from, the details are interesting. Planting a seed and thinking, oh, note to self, that's interesting. But what bubbled up for you? What one thing did you think to yourself, oh yeah, I'm not drinking enough water? Or, oh, when's the last time I had a vegetable? Start thinking to yourself, and if I were to choose a vegetable, what would it be? Pick one and start there. That's all you have to do to get started. And then 3 days later, pick one more thing. I meet with people every 2 weeks because it gives them time to pick some healthy habits that we talk about together. They get 1 or 2 things to do in a couple of weeks and then come back, and they might come back and say, yeah, I hated that. I tried to do that and I hated it, but why did you hate it? And what didn't work? And what are you going to do instead? And then we meet again in 2 weeks and we keep moving forward and focusing on how we feel. So it's keeping it simple with both of us. And this is where you can contact both of us. I am offering for people, I do this when I give talks, I have a 20% discount for my one-on-one coaching. If you mention the Good Gut as your coupon that you were here in this seminar and you're interested in sitting down with me, you can arrange a free sit down at michelledewolf.com, and we'll just talk about what's going on and how you're feeling and what your goals are. And then when you sign up for that one-on-one regular coaching, you'll get 20% off the whole program for about the next 7 days. If you sign up for that sit down in the next week, then I will honor that 20% off. And just do the sit down, have a conversation. Why not? Doesn't cost anything. And here's where you can contact Dr. Mona.
Yep. And I have 2 different clinics, one right in North Seattle and one in Arlington, just north of the city. And it's not just me. I've got a great team of providers who all know hormones, all know gut health. And I've got a wonderful team to help get people balanced, back on track, and feeling their best again. Thank you everyone for joining us and staying on so late. But we should probably let people go for the evening.
Yeah. We could do this all day, but we will let you guys go. Know that you'll get the recording. Know that you'll be able to contact either of us with questions or anything that you might need. We are here for you. We love the work we do, and we appreciate your time.